As I checked myself in the mirror before heading off to my shift down at the meatpacking factory, I decided to put on my pumped up kicks and double check my name tag before reading my daily positive affirmations and departing for the day. Turns out I got lost and ended up breaking and entering into my neighbor's house instead of going to work that day. As I wandered around the living room doing my daily stretches, I couldn't help but notice the news on TV covering some national emergency. Understanding how unbelievably boring that is, I immediately turned it off and went to go raid his kitchen. Doubtfully. Deciding that the best way to spend the remainder of my free time before going to prison for burglary was to simply liberate my neighbor of all of his cutlery and canned goods, I made sure to stuff my pockets with as much tin as my waistband would allow. Then I found it, my favorite snack, hot sauce and raw cabbage. Having run out of room in my pockets, it occurred to me that I probably should check to make sure I locked the door behind me when I first broke in. Satisfied with the fact that I had, I decided to size up the house for a little bit of feng shui when suddenly there was a knock at the door. Unaware that my neighbor was expecting company, strange since he wasn't home, I decided to panic and flee out the back door. Sneaking out the back, I was surprised with how busy the neighborhood was. Deciding to act casual, I made my way towards the street as if I hadn't just taken all the worldly possessions of my nearest neighbor. Unfortunately, there seemed to be a block party going on and I was quickly noticed. Attempting to explain myself, I panicked further and began running away from the clearly incensed mob. It had not occurred to me how popular and well-loved my neighbor seemed to be, and as I stopped to catch my breath and call a lawyer, the entire neighborhood gave me a strongly worded condemnation of my illicit actions. While they searched my person for all that I had taken, they got a bit zealous and took my keys, and my kidneys, and all the blood I used for living. Having been demoted to fry cook after dying and missing work at the canning factory due to being eviscerated by an angry mob, I woke up with a newfound sense of purpose. After completely changing everything about myself in an attempt to start fresh in a new town, I glued on my chest hair, slicked back my mohawk, took off my glasses, and set out to meet the world. Waking up in my own house for a change, I decided to practice my poop walk and put on my jacket before heading out into the neighborhood for my daily jog. Not wanting to be forced into small talk with my neighbors, I decided a hike through the woods would probably be the better option. Unfortunately, that's when my neighbor Cheryl saw me. Insisting on trying to claim that I did not have chest hair yesterday, Cheryl began attempting to rip it off of my body. I repeatedly explained to her how mistaken she was. After working herself into a tizzy, I began calming her down by applying a series of well-placed pressure point therapies. Looking to make sure I hadn't been seen giving out free massages, I allowed her to continue relaxing while I took payment from her pockets. Unfortunately, word quickly got out about my magic touch, and I was talked into giving a few more pro bono boot bottom back rubs. Noticing the broken window at my neighbor's house, I went in for a closer look. Hopping the fence that they built after the last time I came over to look through their windows, I couldn't help but notice there was a bit of a commotion happening. Word of my nimble knuckles had gotten out. Attempting to skulk away, I quickly found myself surrounded by the pleas of the overly ambitious, begging for the sweet, sweet release of their tension via my fry-flipping fingers. While trying my best to simultaneously service the surrounding sick, I found myself quickly overwhelmed by my sudden popularity and decided that right then and there was a great time for a forever nap. Finally understanding that what I had been lacking this whole time was authority, I bought a badge and found myself reborn in my kitchen. Realizing that I had left my gun at the store, along with all my bullets, I put all of my weight under my knees, left the house, checked on Cheryl, and headed down the street like I owned it. Unenthused about the prospect of another incident like last time, I started informing the cul-de-sac that I wouldn't be having any of their shenanigans, but this time I said it with confidence. It was misplaced. While they eagerly informed me about a great deal on renewing my car's extended warranty, I got so excited to fill out the paperwork that I slipped while discussing the savings and sprained my ankle, dying there on the spot from my old friend Mr. Blood Loss. Finally understanding the error of my ways, I printed a medical degree, gathered what remained of my chest hair, and headed back to West Point. While staying at my Airbnb, I grabbed the knitting supplies from the closet, wanting to relax, when the local child gang set off a nearby alarm. Frustrated, I raided the kitchen in an attempt to eat away my anger. Realizing that the miscreants were trying to break in, I decided to delicately hobble down the street and attempt to blend in.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
It did not work. Having been alleviated of my material possessions and finally understanding how my neighbors must feel, I decided that my newfound humility would best be complemented by self-imposed witness protections to avoid run-ins with this gang again. So naturally, I put on my chest hair, changed my name, and headed back to Rosewood. Like most nights, I ended up at the police station. Finally getting to see the other side of the chains for a change, I decided to make like a tourist and steal their office supplies. While making use of their take a baton, leave a baton pin, I made note to come back later and pay it forward. Finally armed, I went to the window to check the light emitter in the sky, but just as I suspected, it was out of order. Oblivious to the time, despite the fact that I avoid my taxes like every other citizen, I went to drink water directly from the cooler and continued the rest of my tour. Checking out my old apartment and looking into the many bathrooms, I found myself drawn to a hooligan down the hall. Noting my chance for redemption and utilizing the newfound confidence of my baton beauty stick, I offered to give the punk a makeover. The red really brought out his eyes. Jealousy quickly overtook the nearest nearby eyesore, but feeling philanthropic, I offered to help apply a thin layer of blush. Having had enough of a walk down memory lane and feeling antagonistic, I left the police station and headed down the road towards the fire department in hopes of finding a blaze to beat down. Having immediately been disappointed that the inside of the fire department was not nearly as red as the outside of the fire department, myself and a few volunteers decided to apply a fresh coat of paint to the entryway. I happened upon a bottle of whiskey, and doing the only sensible thing, I immediately drank it in one sitting. As I got into finally feeling spicy enough for my hat, another volunteer arrived to help paint. Satisfied with the way that this room had turned out, I completed my cosplay and set out to find more volunteers for free labor. Reminiscent of my days as a bodyguard on the Dr. Phil show, repainting the firehouse with the help of all of these volunteers reminded me of an episode we had done deep diving into the inner city salsa support squads offered by the Taco Bell Teamwork Treasurers Association at the behest of Mayor McCheese. And although none of that ever happened, the lessons learned from that alleged filming shouldn't be so easily dismissed.
What the fuck?
Having exhausted myself through my own overwhelming compassion towards others, I decided to go take a nap until morning in hopes that they'd finally have the sun fixed.
6 hours later.
Waking up pleasantly surprised by the shine of the Sky Star, I headed downstairs, discussed the weekly happenings with another volunteer, gave job security to the painkiller supply chain, and headed outside through nature's door, the window. Walking down the road in search for a snack and complimenting the local neighborhood watch, I came across my favorite pregame meal. Generator fumes in a closed environment. Unfortunately, before I could find my fork, I heard commotion. Not learning my lesson from literally every other time a commotion had occurred, I went to investigate. Seeing someone I recognized familiarize themselves with the ground, I offered my knowledge and facial reconstruction to assist them. They were so impressed with my offer that they DM'd their family and friends to come over and thank me as fast as they could. The appreciation was more than I could bear, and I passed out from being too awesome. And severe hemorrhaging. Finally understanding the error of my ways, I gathered my chest hair and headed to Riverside to do some well-deserved relaxing by the lake. Clearly the complications as of late arose from my compulsion for kindness towards others, and if only I would take a moment to think of only myself and myself alone, I might find some solace in this world of unrelenting greed.
Of course. How selfish of me.
Stocking up on supplies and assuring the quality of their ingredients, I stumbled into the corner and attempted to overachieve by buffing the floor with my forehead as I took a momentary reprieve from consciousness.
Approximately 10 hours later.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
And that's how my journey to save Skyrim began.
Have you ever had a dream that you could?
Hey, just wanted to say thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed that, go ahead and like and subscribe, and I will see you around in the next one.